Whether you are just starting out, looking for something new, or just seeing what's out there, the Gamasutra Job board is the place where game developers move ahead in their careers. Gamasutra's job board is the most diverse, most active, and most established board of its kind in the video game industry, serving companies of all sizes, from indie to AAA. Here are just some of the many positions being advertised right now. If you are a recruiter looking for talent, you can also post jobs here. Location: Helsinki, Finland. Jose California is seeking highly motivated senior-level designer to join our studio. You are passionate about games and the craft of level design. You take initiative and find creative solutions to complex problems. You are creative, team-spirited and result-oriented. Location: Bellevue, Washington Camouflaj. The studio behind the episodic series RÉPUBLIQUE is looking for a QA tester for a contract position lasting 4 months, working on our ambitious VR-based action game project, Marvel's Iron Man VR. QA performs a vital role as the first audience for any game, reporting on performance, usability, playability, and identifying aspects which could be improved. Testers are responsible for reviewing the quality bar for internal tools and finding flaws before a project is submitted to our publishing partners. Our dev team facing testing efforts work with the internal staff to provide detailed feedback to all the stakeholders and represents the voice of the consumer in production design meetings, and serve as the final gatekeeper before builds are shared externally from the studio. We are a small, focused, and driven team, and this role is an example of that need for both excellence and personal efficiency. Location: Plymouth, Michigan. Stardock is committed to making visually compelling games. We are currently seeking a full-time art director at our Plymouth MI studio. We work with leading-edge technology and need an experienced veteran to guide and blend our amazing engineering capabilities with our talented art team. The art director not only sets the visual style of the game, but provides specific guidance, both artistic and technical, on how to achieve those goals. Location: Emeryville, California. Work alongside Pixar animators and engineers to design and implement new features within the Presto Animation system to help create the next generation of Pixar films. Presto is Pixar's industry-leading animation production software suite, built from the ground up with a modern architecture and a well-designed codebase. You will be challenged by our production teams to enable Pixar to continue to raise the high bar of what can be achieved in the art of digital animation. Location: San Jose, California. FoxNext Games is looking for a senior narrative designer to translate the vision of the creative director into in-game story and playable events, develop fresh and innovative stories, settings, and characters in the alien science fiction universe. Let collaboration with other writers and designers, and more as a part of its team. The Firaxis genre has always been held back by the logic of its imperial fantasy. You enjoy a world where decisions carry precious little weight in all, but the most on strategic terms. If you put your troops on the wrong square pegs, you may well suffer a certain kind of consequence if you are in the midst of a war. Beyond that, though, the world is your silent ally, mute and immortal as you strip mine it or found those wounds. It was always a slightly aggravating thing to need hand to that, too flippant obvious in being a colonial fantasy. The terror is always nullius and eagerly invites your exploitation. Indeed, it's required. There's still a long way to go before the genre really takes its next big leap forward and meaningfully addresses that problem. But a significant step was made by Civ VI's latest expansion, Gathering Storm. Here, at last, the world fights back, and your actions have far-reaching, unintended consequences down the ages, and across the whole of the map. The expansion finally introduces climate change, along with geology and weather effects, the latter actively exacerbated by climate change. Now, you must contend with floods, and the facts you learned in high school history about the fertile Nile River Valley have finally been integrated into the game that owes so much to those heroic stories of ancient Egypt. Rising floodwaters devastate the surrounding terrain, but also fertilize it. Volcanoes erupt across the landscape. Blizzards, hurricanes, and sandstorms pummel their respective biomes. Gaia is back in a big way. But more than that, the world stops yielding to your will and runs out of control. Nothing industrial age and all that coal you mine has a cost that will claim your low-lying cities if you are not careful. Pump enough coal into the air, and the ice caps will melt, causing sea levels to rise incrementally until whole shorelines disappear. From Civ Sky's eye view, you can see the sweep of climate change at a stroke. Worldwide weather, the state of your coastlines, the of the Nile popping, cost in carbon exacted by your power plants and your units. In Civ, you always see its world through a spectrum of data, inputs, outputs, figures, rankings, and infrastructure. Firaxis has brilliantly turned that to its advantage by creating a credible simulation of one of our world's most complex problems. In most things, Civ is an intentionally silly caricature of humanity and our history. Not here. This is not the first time a Civ game has played with climate change, although the last time it did it was complex and inefficient. The 1999 Civilization Contour Power spin-off game, which was not owned by Firaxis and not made with Sid Meier's blessing, has occupied a vexatious and uneasy place in Civ canon. For Civ purists, it was not Meier's brainchild and thus verboten. For others, it had a bounty of good ideas that it's hard not to notice have been integrated into later official Civ games. Clearly defined national borders, advanced trade networks, specialist non-combat units, and now, Civ VI speculation and climate change. Call to power system was innovative for its day. Pollution could effectively destroy tiles if it got bad enough, and cause sea levels to rise by the mid-game. CDP ran all the way into the very distant future, so the modern age was hardly its final act. It was, however, very simple and opaque at the same time. Civilization V has built a whole system around climate change that clarifies a lot, while also adding many more moving parts, and illustrating the difficulties of tackling real-world climate change. This is all to the good. Gathering Storm adds much to the game, little things like naming rivers, so they gain a bit of personality, and big things like bringing back the giant decked robot. More importantly, however, the latter is tied to Civ having a new future era that looks quite cyberpunk. Instead of the game ending in something like the present, we now embrace a sci-fi future as part of the endgame, replete with exotic technologies, futuristic governments, yet another call to power idea that it was time to revisit, and Blade Runner-esque skyscrapers in your cities. Instruct the children not to dream of toys as sweets. Later in Civilization, Beyond Earth is quoted as saying, instruct them to dream of infrastructure. He was in the wrong game. The Gathering Storm expansion adds all manner of infrastructure to the game, bringing railroads back, and adding a bevy of structures that have never before existed in Civ. Canals have been formalized at last. The old trick of plopping a city on a narrow isthmus to create a de facto canal, has finally been embraced by Firaxis and expanded upon. Canal districts let you dig further across the terrain. The Panama Canal World Wonder allows you to go further still. You can connect islands with a Golden Gate Bridge. You can tunnel through mountains. You can dam up flooding rivers.